So friends, once again, I welcome you to the concepts of audit evidences. So far, we already know that evidence should be sufficient as well as appropriate. Now let us quickly understand what are the factors on the basis of which auditor will decide whether evidence is sufficient and appropriate or not. I'm going to share the screen with you. Yeah. So as you can see, this chart shows certain factors which affect the sufficiency aspect. Right, as you can see, the sufficiency dependent upon, you can say, one thing is a materiality. Second thing is risk of material misstatement. Third point is that size and characteristics of the population. So these are the three factors, you can say three prime factors on the basis of which auditor decides the sufficiency of the audit evidences. Right. So now first let us talk about the first point about the materiality. All of us have studied the concept of materiality earlier. So here this refers to significance of the class of transaction and balances and the presentation and disclosure. It talks about the significance. If the item is more significant, then it is more material. Is it done? If it is insignificant, then we can say item is not material. So if auditor is testing an assertion which is very significant, then naturally he needs more evidences. He needs sufficient evidences. And less evidences are required when assertions are less material or assertions are insignificant. You already know what is the meaning of assertions. We have discussed it several times, what kind of assertions auditor needs to test. And whenever auditor designs the audit program, always he has to see that program is meant to test certain assertions. That concept you have to keep in the mind. We have learned how to develop audit programs. At that time, programs are designed in such a way that evidences are collected to test certain assertions. Okay, so less evidences are required if assertions are insignificant. But if assertions are significant, then more evidences might be required. Okay, so this is how materiality is related to the sufficiency of audit evidences. Okay, one more thing or one more factor which is also relevant for this sufficient and appropriateness of audit evidences is risk of material misstatement. This concept also we have learned earlier with reference to uh, basics of audit. What is the risk of material misstatement? Okay, you may understand it like this: the financial statements, uh, let us say, it may be defined as the risk that the financial statements are materially misstated prior to audit. Okay, what is materially misstated? There is a misstatement and which is material. Material means significant. That means which affects the economic decisions of the users of the financial statement. So if we talk about this particular risk, now listen to me very carefully. What risk we are talking about? Risk of material misstatement. And this, if you're talking about this particular risk, try to understand. It has got two components. What is this? What are these two components? One is inherent risk, one is control risk. Okay, I repeat, risk of material misstatement has got two components. One is inherent risk, second is control risk. What is inherent risk? Inherent risk means inherent. That means by default it is there in the financial statement. What is that? This susceptibility of an assertion to a misstatement that could be material before consideration of any related controls. As you know, the entity might be having some internal controls. And because of those internal controls, there is a possibility that misstatements can be avoided, could be avoided. Right? Misstatements, material misstatements are avoided because of this internal controls. But what is the possibility that misstatements could occur? Right? Assuming that there is no internal control. Assume there is no control, no internal control is zero. Is there any possibility that the financial statement can be materially misstated. If there is a possibility, that risk is referred to as inherent risk. Okay, inherent risks are there, but how they are checked, how they are managed? They are managed by internal control system. Okay, but if internal control system fails, then that is a control risk. Now let us understand what is control risk. As you can see, control risk is the risk that a misstatement that could occur in an assertion that could be material will not be prevented, detected, or corrected on timely basis by entities internal control. Entities having an internal control, but there is a possibility that the misstatement may occur at assertion level. A particular assertions may be misstated, and internal control will not be able to prevent it, detect it, and correct it on timely basis. If that possibility is there, that is referred to as control risk. Okay, so I think we have covered broadly 4 kinds of risk. One is audit risk. In the previous session, we have explained to you. Audit risk means risk that auditor gives an inappropriate opinion when the financial statements are materially misstated. That is called as audit risk. Now we are talking about here risk of material misstatement. And this risk of material misstatements has got 2 components. One is inherent risk. Inherent risk is the susceptibility of an assertion to a misstatement that could be material before consideration of related controls. Okay, so before related controls, what is the risk? What is the possibility of assertion being materially misstated? That is inherent risk. And control risk is the risk that our control system, entity's control system, will not be able to prevent, detect, and correct that misstatement on timely basis. Okay, so less evidences will be required in case assertions have lower risk. If these risks are lower, then you require less evidences. And if this risk is higher, then naturally more evidences are required. So this is the relationship of sufficiency of audit evidences with inherent risk, control risk, or taken together, risk of material misstatement. Okay, I think you have understood. Then one more factor that also affects the sufficiency of audit evidences is the size of population. Size of population refers to number of items included in that population. Right. Let us say I'm taking creditors balances. There are 20 creditors, or 200 creditors, or 2,000 creditors. The 2,000 is the population, or 200 may be the population. That means entire number of items included in that population. If population is smaller, then auditor will be satisfied with less evidences. Smaller and that to homogeneous population, almost similar type of population. Let's say data range is 5,000 to 10,000 in that range. But let us say it's not a homogeneous population. Okay, there are some, let us say, domestic data. There are some, let us say, foreign data. They're located in different states, and the amount varies from 5 crore to 500 rupees. So the group is not homogeneous. In that is the kind of situation, then auditor needs more evidences. Okay, so this is how sufficiency aspect is related to various factors. Similarly, coming to appropriateness of audit evidences, certain factors are also important. As you know, appropriateness refers to the measure, it is the measure of the quality of audit evidences or relevance and reliability of audit evidences. Okay, and this appropriateness, or this you can say reliability, is influenced by the source and nature. Source means where from we are collecting, and what are the various natures of audit evidences. Okay, so maybe suppose source is internal, or source might be external. Is it not? And we have to see which is more appropriate in a given situation. Okay, if auditor wants a particular confirmation, might be external evidences might be appropriate. The example I had given you earlier also. Let us say auditor wants to verify a particular tax payment. So challan might be a tax payment challan might be the appropriate evidence that is generated externally. Okay, so like this. So appropriateness is also influenced by the source and the nature. Okay, on that basis, auditor has to decide whether this evidence is appropriate or not. Now, one more concept we need to discuss here is about auditor's response to assessed risk. Once auditor has assessed the risk, auditor has to conclude whether audit evidence or so that sufficient as well as appropriate audit evidences has been collected or not. After that, only auditor will be able to assess the risk. And auditor is expected to collect evidences to reduce the audit risk to an acceptable low level. Once audit risk is, let us say, brought down to an acceptably low level, after that only auditor will be able to draw reasonable conclusions. And that conclusions are in fact going to be expressed in the form of an opinion. Okay, and here also to draw that conclusions, as you see, evidences are important. Evidences means sufficient and appropriate evidences are important. Now we'll talk about various sources of audit evidences as we are discussing right now. Sources also play an important role on deciding appropriateness. Audit evidences may come from various sources. Okay, you already know that evidences are collected by applying audit procedures. Right? What are these audit procedures? Or maybe these are certain examples. Through these examples, one can collect audit evidences. Let us say thorough analysis and review. Auditor may analyze the financial statement and collect some audit evidences. Auditor may analyze the financial statement. You can say, you see, your sales and the discount figures are not matching with each other and not showing some unrelated results. On let us say there is a mismatch. On certain analysis, auditor may find out something. Or auditor may re-perform certain procedures. Client has already applied interest, calculated interest. Auditor will again re-perform. Auditor may also, client has already calculated depreciation. Auditor may again recompute depreciation. So that is also an audit procedure. And also by reconciling related parties and applications for the same information. Same information may be collected from different sources. Auditor may reconcile that thing. So these are some procedures that auditor follow to collect audit evidences. And normally auditor is expected to ensure that when various evidences are collected from various sources, they should be consistent. And in case there is an inconsistency between the evidence which is collected from one source and the evidence which is collected from another source, then auditor might have to modify the audit procedures or follow some additional procedures so that the matter is resolved. That inconsistency should be resolved. Okay. And many times we are discussing about the audit procedures need to be applied. Auditor need to decide what is the right procedures. What is the right procedure? What are the audit procedures we have discussed already at the conceptual level? And every time audit evidence is required and audit procedures need to be applied. And these audit procedures, as you know, broadly are of two types. One is risk assessment procedures, where the auditor at that stage auditor assesses the risk. Then further audit procedures, which includes test of controls, auditor tests the internal controls, and the substantive procedures. Okay, which includes analytical procedures also. So test of controls and substantial procedure. If you look at this chart, you have already seen this chart earlier, but again, you can understand. The reason of applying audit procedure is to collect audit evidences. Or you can say audit evidences are collected by applying audit procedure. Auditor first apply risk assessment procedures. On the basis of assessment of risk, he decides other audit procedures. Other audit procedures includes compliance procedures, which is the test of controls. Here, auditor tests that the internal controls are effective. They are in fact in effect. And other part of other audit procedures is substantive procedures. Here auditor checks the completeness, accuracy and validity of data. And this substantive procedure includes test of details and analytical procedures. Test of details again includes, or it can be divided into two parts: test of transactions, that is we do vouching, we check the transactions, we refer to the voucher entries as per the support, and test of balances. Test of balances means mostly balance sheet items are tested here. Okay, procedure applied may be verification process. So through this maybe physical verification, through that process, balances are tested. So this chart summarizes various audit procedures. Okay, first this particular chart again shows examples of some risk assessment procedures. So one organization may test what is the risk assessment procedures. Maybe you say applying risk assessment procedure, he may say, or the auditor may feel that in the purchase area, maybe risk is very high. Okay, and this risk can be assessed at two levels. One is at assertion level, second is the financial statement level. Assertion level, you have to understand a particular assertion is getting affected. And the financial statement level, when I say we are assessing the risk, that means the entire financial statement gets affected. Right. So auditor may observe at the assertion level risk is high, but at financial statement level risk is moderate. In some other case, let us say an example of bank balance, auditor may assess that at assertion level risk is low, at financial statement level risk is high. These possibilities are also there. So by applying risk assessment procedure, auditor assesses risks at two levels. Okay, friends. Yeah, so let's continue. There was some disturbances, so we got disconnected. But again, I'll start from this point. So as we are discussing that the risk assessment procedures are applied at two levels. One is at assertion level. Second one is at financial statement level. When I talk about assertion level, it means if we are testing or we are feeling a particular assertion is getting affected. And when you talk about the financial statement level, we're seeing the entire financial statement is getting affected. Right. Yeah. Now you see the level of risk might be different at different levels. As you can see, for let us say purchase transaction, risk might be high at assertion level, might be moderate, or might be low even in the financial statement level. A reverse is possible. Risk might be low at assertion level and might be high at financial statement level. So auditor need to assess the risk. Okay, once auditor assesses the risk, then he will develop the audit procedures in such a way that this risk is brought to a tolerable limit. That means acceptably low level. Right, he will collect some evidences so that audit risk is come down to acceptably lower level. Okay, friends, now discuss about some of the audit procedures. Right, so you already you have seen broadly how procedures are classified. These are examples of certain procedures, right? So like this, you can say inspection, observation, external confirmation, recalculation, reperformance, analytical procedures, inquiry. All these are examples of the procedures. So let us discuss one by one. Okay, these are the procedures to collect audit evidences. Okay. And often the combination of these procedures are used as a risk assessment procedure as well as other audit procedures. They are used. So first, let us say first procedure is about inspection. Inspection, as you know, meaning examining the records and documents. Here auditor examines the records and documents. he asks the client to provide him various records and documents. Auditor keeps on examining. That also includes physical examination. It also includes examination in electronic document, examination of electronic documents. And through this examination, auditor collects evidences, collects certain documents and forms his opinion. That is inspection, you can say. What is observation? Observation means it's also an audit process, or we can say, or audit procedure, you can say. And through this process, what happens? Management conducts a process and auditor observes. Let us say management is doing physical verification and auditor is observing whether physical verification is done properly or not. So it consists of looking at a process or procedure being performed by others. Someone else is performing the procedure and auditor is observing. That is called as observation. External confirmation is another procedure. Here what happens? Auditor gets a confirmation from external parties. Most of the cases, let us say, for balance confirmation, maybe debtors balance, maybe creditors balance, maybe bank balance, maybe loan balance. Many times what happens, auditor writes directly to the client. Auditor can write directly to the bank, or auditor can write through the client to the third parties to give a confirmation. And confirmation is supposed to come directly to the auditor about the balances. Auditor normally writes, or the client normally writes that as per books of account, this is the balance, our balance. If it is right, please confirm directly to our auditor. So auditor gets direct confirmation from the third party. So this is an example of external confirmation. Okay. Right. Okay. So next procedure, let us see recalculations. Calculations, as you know, means mathematical calculation. Consists of checking a mathematical accuracy. Entity might have done some calculation, and again auditor is recalculating. That is called recalculations. Can be done manually or can be done electronically also. Right. Example I had given you earlier. Suppose entity has already calculated interest. Auditor is recalculating the interest to verify arithmetical accuracy. So that is an audit procedure. Reperformance. This is independent execution of certain procedures. Okay, independent execution of certain procedures. Meaning, maybe client had already executed that procedure, auditor is re-executing. Okay, so maybe originally performed by the client. What can be the example? Let us say a client has done physical verification, auditor is again doing physical verification. Client has done depreciation computation, auditor is computing depreciation. So this is re-performance. Again, the performance is repeated. That is also one more audit procedure. Analytical procedures. What is that? That is evaluation of financial information. And this is made by a study of plausible relationship. If auditor feels there is a relationship between purchase and sale, or there is a relationship between sales and discount, or there is a relationship between salary and TDS, auditor try to establish and test that relationship by applying certain analytical procedures. Okay, and these procedures also encompasses the investigation of identified fluctuation. If there is some fluctuation, if auditor finds the sales to discount relationship last year it was 20%, this year it is 30%. Okay, now auditor may think to investigate into that. Why it is not consistent? Or auditor may find GP ratio last year, let us say 20%, this year it is 27%. So there is an inconsistency. Right. So through analytical procedure, auditor may draw a conclusion that this aspect needs to be investigated. Okay. Inquiry is one more audit procedure. Here what happens? Information is sought from knowledgeable persons. So if auditor feels that information is available with this person, then auditor may seek that information, ask that information. That is called as inquiry. Okay, maybe written inquiries, maybe oral inquiries, both are possible. And the responses of inquiry may provide the auditor certain information. Auditor might be already having that information, so this inquiry may give some confirmation. It may give a corroborative, evidence, audit evidences. It may confirm auditor's assessment may be confirmed, or it may contradict also. Okay, so many times what happens, auditor also obtains written representation from the management. If auditor feels, auditor may obtain written representation from the management or those charged with governance about oral inquiries. That will give him the additional, let's say, additional document. Right. So one more audit procedure I can see. Already you know risk assessment procedures. Here auditor assess the risk. So here what happens? Auditor obtains certain procedures to obtain an understanding of an entity and its environment, including entity's internal control. Auditor tries to understand the entity's internal control system so that he can assess what is the risk of material misstatement included in the financial statement. Auditor also tries to identify and assess the risk of material misstatement in the at the financial statement level as well as at the assets level. Okay. Further audit procedures you already know. Test of controls and substantive procedures we had discussed it earlier. What is test of control? So these are certain audit procedures designed to evaluate the operating effectiveness of controls. That means whether the internal controls are operating effectively or not, that are tested through test of controls. If they're operating effectively, then they'll be able to prevent, detect, and correct material misstatements at assertion level. Okay. So test of control means this control aspects or internal controls are tested to ensure whether they are able to prevent, detect, and correct material misstatements at assertion level. Okay, so that is the meaning of test of controls. Auditors are designed and perform test of controls to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidences to the operating effectiveness of the relevant controls when auditor's assessment of risk of material misstatement at the assertion level includes some expectations that the controls are operating effectively. If auditor believes that controls are operating effectively and because of that controls there is a possibility that material misstatements are less, auditor may test whether that actually working or not. Okay, so only substantive procedure cannot satisfy the auditor as regards to audit evidences that may not give you sufficient appropriate audit evidences. So therefore, compliance procedure as well as substantive procedures, both are important. Okay, what is the meaning of test of control? As already we have discussed. This means we are testing whether the internal control system is operating at a particular time or throughout the period. Okay, if it is operating properly, then auditor can rely on it. Otherwise, it may not be reliable. Okay, there are some other detailed points are there. When, let us say, specific inquiries by auditor when detects some deviations. Sometimes auditor may detect certain deviations. Okay. Then what is expected? Auditor shall make some specific inquiries to understand that matters. Right. And he shall determine whether the test of control that have performed provide an appropriate basis for reliance of the controls. Additional test of the controls are required or not, or potential risk of material misstatement. Right. So auditor has maybe initially he has already assessed the internal control system, but now he is detecting some deviations. So he has to again see that whether he should rely on that internal control system or not, or if required, additional tests or additional controls may be applied. And because of that, if there is some potential, he has to also assess whether there is a potential risk of material misstatement because of this deviations from internal controls. Okay, this is about test of controls. And coming to substantive procedures, that includes test of details and analytical procedures. Okay, and these are you can say some of the examples of substantive procedures we'll see. Auditor has to design substantive procedures also, so that audit evidences are collected. So already you know vouching, verification, etc. forms a part of substantive procedures. Okay. So broadly now we have concluded by applying compliance procedures as well as substantive procedures, and also this thing, all other kind of all procedures that we have learned. Auditors basically collects evidences, and when these evidences come, they come in different forms. Here are some examples of forms of evidences. We'll quickly see that. So depending upon the nature, we can have evidences. We can classify evidences like visual audit evidences, oral audit evidences, or documentary audit evidences. And depending upon the sources, we can have internal audit evidences and external audit evidences. Like that we can have. Visual audit evidences, as you can see, if somebody can see it, that is observing physical verification of inventory is an example of visual audit evidences. Oral, as you can see, discussing with the management. This is through that auditor collects oral audit evidences. Documentary audit evidences. That auditor is verifying fixed deposits or certain certificates or loan agreements, sell bills, etc. So what auditor collects are nothing but documentary audit evidences. Okay. Evidences can also be classified like this: internal evidences and external evidences. When evidences are originating from the organization itself, they are referred to as internal audit evidences. When they're originating from the outside the organization, they are referred to as external audit evidences. Okay. And while audit evidences is primarily obtained from audit procedures performed during the course of an audit, it may include information obtained from other sources. You have already seen it collects, auditor collects evidences from various sources, and reliability also depends upon these kind of various sources. Okay, so this particular chart explains the reliability of audit evidences. It increases when it's obtained from independent source. That is not from the client, from some outside external agency. If it is obtained, which is independent, not related to the client, then naturally reliability increases. Okay, and if related internal controls are more effective, then also reliability increases. And if certain evidences are collected directly by the auditor, auditor has asked for the information and it has given directly to it. It is not routed through the client. Then it's more reliable. When it is obtained from documentary form, it is more reliable than, let us say, it is obtained in a oral form. And when it is obtained from original document, that is definitely more reliable than when it is obtained, let us say, copies or duplicates. So this is how auditor assesses whether an evidence is more reliable or less reliable. Okay, sometimes auditor obtain written representation, that also forms a part of audit evidences. Okay, that means management gives a representation that this thing has happened. On that basis, sometimes auditor concludes something, but written representation is not a uh, alternative to other audit evidences. Auditors should try for compliance and substantive audit evidences. But in worst case, let us say no evidence is available, auditor may see to what extent he can rely on written representations made by the management. Okay. Okay. So broadly, we have concluded these concepts of audit evidences. And key thing is that uh, topic is definitely understanding is definitely important. But what is more important is that converting that understanding uh, to practical applications. So practically, if you can think this is the requirement of audit evidences, what procedure I should follow to collect. If you can visualize that thing, then this topic, this concept, your understanding will be very useful to you. Okay, hope up to this it is clear to you. Do you have any query?